And one of the new movies is Africa United. Its writer is Rhidian Brook. We discussed on this programme when Slumdog Millionaire came out, how it was marketed on the side of buses because
it's a feel-good film.
Well, yes, and I think the quote that they found from someone was the
feel-good film of the decade, yes. Which was kind of hard to imagine the scenes of the children being horribly abused in the back streets of Mumbai. It was a strange quote.
And some people have... I mean, on the one hand, it's a great compliment if there's, it's the Slumdog film of the year in that same kind of category, which kind of helps you enormously because of all the accolades that went with that fantastic film, while on the other hand not helping at all.
Yeah, look, when we discussed this idea, I'm not even sure that Slumdog was in the ether, at least in our thinking. But by the time I'd written the script, Slumdog was out there, so it created an atmosphere, if you like, an environment where a film that was set in another country involving kids and some hardship could still get people going to cinemas. I think it's become a byword for a film that people want to see, so that's great. The danger is that people have that expectation of it being something that's, really slick, incredibly well done and all of those things. Not that ours isn't, but it is a different film, and you want it's saying and doing different things in a different way. It's also, I think, it's more of a family film. It's not that when I wrote it, I wasn't actually consciously thinking I'm writing a family film. I knew that it was going to be kids were going to be the voice. Therefore, it was a film that families could go and see. And from my own experience, I felt some of the issues that are in that film are issues that kids can engage with and should engage with, as my own children did when I did the journey.
Well, I want to ask you about that. I want to ask you about that in just a moment. But when you call it a family film, that and this taps into previous conversations that we've had about the 12 certificate, which is what you've got here. It's a family
12A.
film. 12A.
Yeah, but all 12 is 12A.
So what you have is a family film about kids with AIDS, HIV, child soldiers, and quite a bit of cussing.
Prostitution. And I mean the most difficult subjects, to deal with.
Yes, but I think they are there, and I think they're right. I think they're rightly there. It just wouldn't have been. I don't think we'd have any integrity if we hadn't found a way to weave those in to the story. And in fact, in the case of Dudu, it's in the DNA of his who he is and why actually he's making the journey. I don't want to give that away, but that was the very first Dudu's situation, and the deeper things that he's facing that was the first thing I got right from the beginning when I was writing the story. So it just felt right. It's interesting because when you write a script, you don't. I don't know. I wasn't consciously thinking which demographic and age group is this for. That's something that happens later, and the marketing and all these things take over, and they're trying to find who is the audience for this. And I think when we made it, we were conscious that it was a film, certainly a film that I wanted my 10-year-old daughter to be able to see, but I wanted my mum and my dad to go and enjoy it too, and I think it does fit that.
But what's interesting is that right from the very beginning, when the film opens with a young child giving this safe sex lecture about using condoms, and then he very cleverly turns a condom into a football whilst he's explaining, you see that he's actually in the process of explaining this to other people, and so it's like at the very beginning you set your stall out. We're going to talk about these subjects, but we're going to talk about them in a way which is very, very sort of young friendly, which is totally unabashed. And actually, looking at the BBFC report, which is quite extensive as always, they've acknowledged everything that's in it. But what they've also acknowledged is it's all done in a manner which does not, therefore, disclose the ordinary. I have to say I'm impressed that you've got a 12A certificate. I think it would have been a great loss for it to be a 15, but I think it really could easily have been a 15, just considering, when you're talking about subjects of child soldiery, you think recently, look at movies like Johnny Mad Dog, which were dealing with similar. It's a really appallingly tough subject. And the fact that you've managed to get that into a 12A certificate movie, I think is great credit to you.
Yeah, I think it isn't an issues-driven movie. I think it was essentially a character-driven movie. I think that's why it works at that level. I think because it's humorous, it's full of adventure. There's lots of action. Again, it wasn't being driven by any of those issues. They're all there, and they're all important. And I think need to be acknowledged, but I think they add something to it. Obviously within the film there's a cartoon within the film, which we call Dudu Vision, and that was again from the beginning. I wanted Dudu to be able to tell a story within the story, and the thinking there was partly that he would be able to articulate some of the things he couldn't articulate in the film. And there was a bit of resistance at first to us having a cartoon within it. And
But the animated sequences are really, actually, for a few people have mentioned how much they stand out. They are, but they're very bright and vibrant and bring you in, and and remind you the tone of the film.
Yeah, and they're sort of they actually in a way slow it down as well, and it has a different pace because it's very snappy and fast and punchy, and all of that's good, and there's a high energy to it. But the Doodoo Vision sort of slightly slows it down, just shows you another world, shows you some of the sort of almost like the subliminal things that are going on in Doodoo's head that he can't express.